Good morning and welcome to the end of your first week in an online course. I guess 5 days in anyway, so we're close. I'm going to begin by updating a couple of things relative to due dates. As a rule, most things will be due on Sunday night at midnight, 11:59. I close the box, but you're welcome to turn things in early along the way. I don't advise you working weeks in advance because the material that I'll provide during the week should build to the actual assignment. Believe me, I realize how quickly the turnover is, but that's kind of what happens in a 5-week course, and especially in an online 5-week course. Okay, so for this Sunday at 11:59, you have your first bigger essay due, and that is the rhetorical analysis. I've asked you to examine 3 articles inside that module on the rhetorical analysis, and the goal is to then identify one of those articles that you'd like to dig into a little more deeply, that you want to evaluate, that you want to talk about in a 3 to 5 page paper, basically. What you're going to do is look not at whether or not you agree or disagree with what the author is saying, but instead you're going to analyze the structure of the essay, the development of the argument. So you're critiquing, you're reviewing, you're evaluating, you're reading critically, and then you're also reading like a writer, so as if to say, okay, this is what he's doing. Not only is this what he's doing, but this is why he's doing it, and this is the effect of what he's doing. And that's the objective of a rhetorical analysis, for you to be able to say, okay, first of all, this is what the writer is claiming. This is what he's attempting to prove in this op-ed. And you're going to look at for whom he's writing it, because audience, I told you we were talking about this the other day, is critical. Okay, so he's going to take that into consideration, and then the argument will be modified according to the recipient of that argument. So if it's an op-ed in the New York Times, that's important. Okay, who's reading the New York Times? Who's this writer trying to persuade? How do you know that? How well is that working? Remember, it is not about whether or not you think the writer is correct or the writer shares the same position as you. It doesn't matter at all. All right, you're looking at the bones of the argument. What has he done? How has he done it? And what's the effect of what's being done on that page? So I've given you a couple of videos to examine some different strategies for picking apart a found argument. I've also posted a couple of links to articles and some other suggestions, things along those lines. If you take a look at Carol's piece, you'll see that she is talking a lot about kind of unpacking the argument. And that's what I want you to do in that rhetorical analysis. I've posted a couple of sample rhetorical analyses from past years. You have to, as you begin, mention the title of the article. Titles of articles always go in quotation marks. Always. Do not italicize them. They go in quotation marks. The source that it comes from. So, for example, the one essay is from the New York Times. The title of the New York Times, that gets italicized. So large things get italics, shorter things, titles of articles, go in quotation marks. You want to mention the author's name in the piece. Okay, it's important. Maybe you need to do a little research to find out who the author is, all right, in order to discuss his or her ethos or credibility. Is he an expert? Is she an expert? Is it just Joe Schmo writing from his backyard? If that's the case, it's going to diminish the credibility of the piece. So you can certainly comment on that. As you craft your rhetorical analysis, remember you don't have to cover every single piece of it. Maybe there's some component of it that you find especially poignant, something very strong or something very weak. You can analyze in that realm. I don't want these rhetorical analyses to simply tell me what the writer already said. You need to have a brief summary, but that summary really should be brief, and you can thread it throughout the analysis if you like. The key is you're telling me not what he said, but why he said it and what the effect of what he said has on the quality of the argument. So channel your energy along those lines. It's very easy to get wrapped up in just repeating or regurgitating what the writer said. I have the article, I've read it, I know. So keep that summary to a minimum and focus instead on the analysis of the quality of that argument. Okay, so that's point one. Number two, you have your first blog entry due on Monday night. And I think all of you now have created a blog site on Medium. And I posted a link to all of your blog sites. It's a Wix page, and it'll just say summer 2 comp, something like that. I think the actual address still goes back to the fall of 16, I think, when I used this actual site. I just didn't create a new domain. So you'll be able to link on one another's blog sites inside of that. If you'd like to go in and read other people's blog entries, by all means, please do that. And let me talk just a minute about what those are going to turn into. Every week, I'm going to give you some direction, and you're going to create a blog entry. And the purpose is this, okay? In all the formal essays, you're going to have a little different voice. Of course, they're academic. But on the blog, you can really be who you are, and you can present yourself in a way that you think is most consistent with your tone, your language, and your audience, because the audience of the blog could be anybody, right? Essentially, anybody could trip across your blog, you could become blog famous. I don't know, all kinds of things could happen. But the bottom line is you get to express yourself in a way that you think is most consistent with your writing style. And so I'm going to encourage that. Maybe you don't know who you want to be in the blog yet, but you'll figure that out along the way. Basically, I'll give you a couple of those topics, and they're all listed on the syllabus or on the assignment sheets. But there'll be a few where you can just hold forth, and I encourage you to blog away, even when there's not an assignment. I know everybody's running right to their computers to blog, but hold off. But I'll look at those. You'll get credit for doing the initial blog entry, and then at the end of the semester, I'll ask you to go back, revise, choose your top blog entries, and then you'll resubmit those for the big grade, which will be a 100-point project near the end, just to kind of flash forward, because this is going to go so quickly. It's already going so quickly. Okay, so you have your rhetorical analysis due and your blog entry due on Monday. The first blog entry is based on McSweeney's open letters. Read them. I posted the link inside the module. Read a bunch of them. They're hilarious, they're fun, they're quirky, they're very interesting. I would recommend starting with a pet peeve. So like if you hate slow drivers and you find yourself behind a slow driver this morning, you could say, to the lady in the red car who refused to go the speed limit. And then the address is essentially being made to anyone. It's a rhetorical sort of letter, because that lady in the red car is not supposed to actually read your open letter, but the universal applicability of what it is you're saying is what makes those entries funny, and they're designed to be comical. They're really not supposed to be super serious. I've had people write them in a more serious vein and maybe more serious matter, right? So just you decide what you want it to be, but as a rule, if it's lighthearted, go with that. It's fine. And I encourage you to do whatever you like. I've had people write in more satirical tones, which is also incredibly effective. So maybe it's something that touches a nerve with you, and you explore it that way, and it gives rise to a larger issue. Okay, so maybe you've experienced some form of discrimination, or you've been offended, or you've been kind of slighted in some way, and that gives you an opportunity to say something in that sort of forum in a way that reaches then a larger audience, and that makes those letters extremely effective as well. So that's what I would suggest. Read a bunch of those letters, and then it's just a great venting receptacle, to be honest with you. Plus, it's a good chance to reach an audience in a different way. Okay, so that's where we're going now. Let me give you the big picture. Ultimately, the objective of the course culminates in a capstone essay, and that's going to be a researched argument, and that's going to be any topic you choose. I'm not going to give that to you. Most of you don't want me to. I want you to write about something that you're interested in. Prior to the development of that essay, you're going to create an annotated bibliography. Basically, it's obviously all part of the same thing. So as you're doing the research, I'm going to show you how to annotate those resources. I'm going to show you how to write a proposal, and all of those pieces are going to come together to allow you to write this longer, yes, like 6 to 8 page researched argument. So I want you to start thinking about topics that you care about. I'm going to ask you strongly to avoid things like capital punishment, abortion, um, things that are they've been done and they've been done again and again, and you're essentially then just recycling those ideas, and they're so large. Those are really big topics to attempt to handle in an I know you don't think 8 pages is short, but in a shorter essay. So we'll talk a lot more about that next week, but start generating some thoughts about what you might want to explore in writing for the capstone. And it could be something small. Maybe you're just like totally appalled at the parking situation in Akron, or you're just mortified over college costs, or maybe it's your local township passing some sort of local law that you agree with or disagree with, whatever it might be. Just start thinking along those lines. Okay, don't forget to check out all the links I've posted, all the articles. I'm expecting you to do that. Okay, this is the glory of an online course. It's all on you. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the weather. If you need me, you know how to get in touch with me.